today we have Andy Pillar. He is who organize the 70,000 tons metal, yeah?
70,000 tons of metal.
Okay.
The original, the world's biggest heavy metal cruise.
Okay. Today we have some question for you about the cruise and about some interesting activities that we have in the cruise, okay? So, first one, we know that you were in the Monster of Rock. How did you feel there?
So, first of all,
okay,
thank you very much for having me on Headbangers Latinoamerica. It's
the pleasure
my
is
real
ours.
pleasure to be here, you know. So look, I mean, this just came together by accident, actually. I travel a lot for work, you know, checking out bands, meeting bands that I already know and work with. There were some bands, especially Halloween and also Angra, that replaced Saxon, but I worked with Saxon in the past as well.
Yeah.
Playing last Saturday. Tomorrow there is another concert in this beautiful city of Bogota,
okay,
with Accept and Stradivarius and Gravedigger. Actually, all bands that have been on 70,000 tons of metal before.
Okay,
so,
that's great.
Yeah, and then, you know, also always checking out other local bands. And I've been here several times in Colombia. You know, it's a really beautiful country. Always my pleasure to come back here.
Okay, about Colombia. What kind of experience do you have here? What do you like? What you don't like?
I mean, what I really like here, first of all, is the people. You know,
people,
it's
okay,
really nice
great.
people. It's good, interesting food. You know, and what is kind of special here, what I really enjoy is that. You know, I'm born in Germany. I grew up in Switzerland, so we have seasons. Sometimes it's getting really, really cold. You know, right now it's kind of a rainy season here. You know,
yeah.
but still, you know, like you always have kind of nice weather and stuff. You know, so maybe if I would have been here all my life, I wouldn't have come to the idea to create a heavy metal cruise in the Caribbean, because like when I came up with this idea, one of the things was also, you know, an escape for people that live in
the routine.
Yeah, not only this, but also go and enjoy a heavy metal festival for the northern hemisphere when it's cold. You know, like people in Scandinavia and Finland and Canada, stuff like this. You know, for them this is of course really an escape. You know, when they live under tons of snow. But coming back to your question, the people here that are really nice. Once again, the food, really interesting landscape, interesting culture. You know, I enjoy coming here every time.
Okay, thank you. Well, we know that 70,000 tons, it is not just a festival or concert. Yeah. How would you define it for people who wants to go?
It's not just a festival. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, my original idea was. Bringing a heavy metal festival on a cruise ship. I can also tell you how I came up with this idea.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious, you know, like sometimes you have a drink too many and then you have crazy ideas.
Yeah.
About a little over 20 years ago, because I was a tour manager for many years, and I worked with some Canadian bands, and it came to Vancouver in Canada. For pre-production, kind of fell in love with the city and ended up having an apartment there as well, you know. And I moved in the meantime, but the apartment I had at this time was literally like 150 meters from the cruise pier in Vancouver. And not in the winter, of course, you know,
yeah.
but in the summer there is cruises that go to Alaska and stuff like this. So one evening I was sitting on my balcony and I could see the cruise ship here from there with some friends, and yeah, we had some drinks. Obviously I had one drink too many, yeah. And I said like, oh, we should rent one of these cruise ships and put a heavy metal festival on. And all my friends were like, Andy, you're crazy. This is never gonna work, you know, like people are gonna die, people go overboard, people sink the ship, you know, like you can imagine all the crazy ideas that people have then. Next day I still had this idea spinning in my mind. And I started to create a business plan. I mean, I worked my whole life actually in the live music industry. I started when I was a teenager, actually organizing small concerts back in Europe, back in Switzerland. Did then concerts and more moved into an agent role. So I booked bands in the neighboring countries, in Italy, in France, in Austria, and in Switzerland itself. That led more to a tour manager role. So then I was for 15 years a tour manager, lived on tour buses.
Okay.
And then, in Canada, I came to this idea, and look, I mean, it took me 3.5 years from when I had the idea until the first one that happened. And it turned out better than in my wildest dreams. I had from the beginning on this very, very clear idea. For example, having a big stage on the open air, like on the pool deck, covering one of the swimming pools and put a big open air stage there. When I had the idea, I knew everything about concerts and touring and festivals. I didn't really know anything about cruise ships. I didn't even know how to spell cruise ships, so to speak. So I had to learn a lot about this. I had to go on a lot of cruises myself, finding a ship that actually I can put to life my ideas. I saw that on all these ships there is kind of a theater in there, but they are all seated, so like heavy metal seated doesn't work, so we have to take the seats out and all this kind of stuff. And also about this, many other people, they told me you're crazy, because we started on a smaller ship. That's where the name comes from, 70,000 tons, because it was actually a little bit more, 73,594 tons of displacement, but that doesn't sound cool, so 70,000 tons. We could sell about 2,000 tickets. And my idea, one of the initial ideas always was create a very, very special atmosphere. So no backstage, everybody is a VIP, right? So I wanted to have for every musician only 10 fans. So I knew we could sell about 2,000 tickets on that ship. And the average band has like 4 members, some have only 3 and 4, but there is like some folk metal bands, they have 8 or 9 or 11. So let's say an average of 40 bands, 200 musicians, 2,000 fans. This we still have on the bigger ship now, which is actually 154,000 tons. So it's 2.2 times 70,000 tons.
Okay.
You can't change the name, like.
But you don't like to change the name.
No. I mean, to me, this is actually crazy because the logo, the 70,000 tons of metal logo, I drew this myself 16 years ago. Now there is people that have this logo tattooed. There is actually girls that have this tattooed on their back,
God,
which is like completely crazy.
That would be amazing for you.
Well, yes, but it gives me goosebumps, just to think about it. Because for me, I'm like just a guy that has some crazy idea, and now with that name, with that logo that I drew, they have this tattooed on their body. This is real dedication.
Yeah.
But to describe it, it's different than any other festival because yes, we do not have a backstage area. We do not have a VIP area. We kind of celebrate this already at the port. When people go in the terminal, they go through security. They go through the check-in, all the bands, all the fans, doesn't matter from the biggest band to the fans that are in a small 4-bed cabin on deck 2. They all go to the same place. And you have to experience this yourself, really. It's hard to describe. You can watch videos and read stories. You can hear what I'm telling you now. You got to experience this yourself. When you walk over this gangway on the ship, something happens in your subconscious, and you realize, and it is the same for the fans and for the bands, we are all, in the true sense of the meaning, on the same boat.
Cool.
So, yes.
Tell us something about an activity, I think, that we name Belly Float.
The Belly Flop Contest.
Exactly. We want to know something about it.
Thinking about crazy activities, and of course, first of all, it should have been a heavy metal festival, but you also want to have fun, and we want to do things that on another festival you cannot do.
Yeah.
And we have swimming pools on that ship. And yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, like just maybe over a couple of drinks or one drink too many, you know. Sometimes somebody came to the idea, oh yeah, there is a lot of big guys too, you know, so if they flop in the water, it makes a big splash. And this would be really funny, no? So we created this idea, and then also have actually jurors, like band members, that all grade everybody that jumps in. So it's kind of a competition, you know, and it's a big fun activity and not just concerts, you know. So yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Cool. Well, what did you do before sailing? Well,
work all night and all day and all night long, you know.
Yeah.
The days before the cruise are an extremely intense time. I think everybody that ever organized a big party knows this, you know.
Yeah.
Like in the end, you want to have a big party, you want to have a birthday party, you don't really have a party. You have to organize everything. So you can imagine this for 60 bands, or sometimes we even have more, 61, 62, 63 bands, for over 3,000 fans. And all the non-revenue, we call them non-revenue guests, so yeah, all the musicians, but all the crew, security, press, VIPs and so on. We're over 4,000 people. So organizing this the last few days before, we have 2 hotels in Miami full just of our people, and sometimes it's really working the entire night through. Okay. And the big thing overall, what makes this so difficult is logistics and time, because when you do a festival in a big arena, in a stadium, or somewhere on a field, first of all you have space. And you have time. You can start to build your stage days before. For us, this is very much different. The ship comes in the morning from a previous cruise with normal guests. We have to wait until customs clears the ship. And then we literally have a few hours to load 15 trailer trucks of equipment with a crane and everything onto that ship. And it's a very, very condensed space. So every piece of equipment has a color code. We have maps exactly where everything goes. It's logistics, and there has to be a master plan. And you move one piece, everything doesn't really work anymore. So it is quite a challenge, but I like challenges. You know, I like to do difficult things, but it is stressful. So for me, there is no sleep.
Okay, about that, how can you try to relax or try to control your stress?
The thing is, you know, and now in a much bigger sense, but I got the same reward, the same kind of, yeah, I can only call it a reward. Already before, when I organized smaller concerts, or later on all these years when I was a tour manager, when the band afterwards plays, standing on the side of the stage and looking at all these happy faces.
All right.
That gives me so much pleasure, that makes me proud, that gives me energy, you know, so.
The feeling of.
Yes, and so I wouldn't necessarily call it relaxing, but it gives me energy to keep on going, you know. Yes.
To go on, okay. Yeah. There's something that people used to forget, that is the schedule.
The schedule?
Yeah. What happened with the people who arrived delayed?
Okay, look, I mean, actually this is a testimony to metalheads and to metal fans. It happens sometimes that people just don't show up at all, right? But we also tell to all the fans, all the bands too, by the way, come to Miami at least one day before. Because look, I mean, most of the people, they don't live in Florida, they fly there, and from all over, from Colombia to New Zealand, and from Japan to Finland, and from Canada to South Africa, from all over the world.
Yeah.
Sometimes flights get delayed. Often you don't have a direct flight, you need to take connections. I mean, everybody that traveled before probably had this happening. So the boat doesn't really wait so come to Miami at least one day before. There is also a lot of activities in Miami that we have nothing to do. And honestly, this is all fan organized. The fans, they organize a lot of pre-parties. There is, for example, maybe the biggest one is a big party on the beach, in Miami Beach. And it's kind of funny. I wish I could go there once because I am so busy I can't, but I see pictures. The whole beach in Miami Beach turns black, because there is thousands of metalheads all dressed in black, which normally you probably don't really get in Miami Beach, So you can enjoy those kind of activities too. Some of this stuff goes already on for days before, like metal karaoke. There is other bands playing, and it's all fan organized. We don't do this ourselves, So this is already a motivation for people to come early. We sometimes had to hold the ship, because we get people they miss their flights and they call us, and if it's a lot, we can do it for a certain time, but not for so much, because at some point, we still have to reach our destination, and it increases price extremely much too. There is all the people that work on the pier, the longshoremen, and it's not just 2-3 people; it's dozens of people that have to be there to actually untie the ship, and then so it can set sail. So they will charge overtime. The ship has to go faster. We have to burn more fuel. That costs a lot of money. Yeah. So delays can happen, short delays, but really the ship sailing, at some point it has to sail. Interestingly enough, however, and this is the real testimony to metalheads, we never left anybody behind on our destination. Never. Not a single one. Look, the first 70,000 tons of metal was in 2011, so in over 12 years. We never left a single person behind. The ship always left the island or wherever we went, to Mexico or to Turks and Caicos or to Jamaica or to Haiti or so. Everybody was always on board. And the cruise line actually tells me this is not usual. On the regular cruises, they have to sound the horn, dang, dang, and some people, they just, they're drunk or whatever. Yeah. The metalheads, they were always on board, so cool. Great, really great.
The cruise starts in Miami.
That's right.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about other route? For instance, maybe Panama, Curacao, or another place, or another city in another country. I don't know.
Look, there are various factors that play into that. First of all, you need to have a ship that is already there, because we're easily talking about millions of dollars. So if the ship is not already there, you have to kind of move the ship somewhere else, which drives up the price dramatically. So that is the factor number one. Miami, they pride themselves, they call themselves the cruise capital of the world. So there is a lot of ships there, so it's ideal. The next thing is, because of not only all the artists, but also all the fans that come from all over the world. And this is, by the way, the thing that makes me most proud. It's kind of an interesting numbers game. But in the last few editions of 70,000 tons of metal, there were people from more than 70 different countries. And so it's kind of funny, 70 countries on 70,000 tons of metal. We call it the United Nations of heavy metal at sea. Okay. So you need a big airport, for people to fly in, to get easily in there. Therefore, Miami is kind of ideal. Okay. That being said, never say never. There is a lot of interesting and beautiful countries. There is a lot of ports. There is a lot of big airports. There is a lot of oceans. So
maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future, their plans were actually already kind of having prepared before the pandemic. Then COVID happened, a lot of things went sideways, 2 years we tried to forget, But there was also no 70,000 tons of metal during that time, unfortunately. So this delayed a lot of things, but in simple words, never say never.
Perfect. Never say never.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we want to talk about some important things about money. As we know, in some countries, high inflation has provoked some problems with bands, with the concert, with the festivals. How do you deal it? How do you deal with the bands and even with the people, with the fans?
It's everything. It's not just look, I mean, this inflation problem that we especially have increasingly, especially since the pandemic, this has hit people all over the world. It doesn't matter where you go, people are affected by this. In some countries much more, because maybe the currency is not as strong as in other countries. But the problem is all over, you know. Everybody wants more, and this goes from chartering the ship to paying the bands to the equipment, everything. Everything goes up, up, up. Some of it actually massively. Naturally, we can or we have to increase ticket prices to a certain degree. But now some people, some companies, whatever, they suddenly want to have the double or even more. I cannot just double the ticket prices. It's impossible because, like, I mean, this will kill the business. I mean, like, people maybe also slightly get increased wages, but they don't from one year to the next year suddenly earn the double. So this is a real problem. It is a real problem, and I don't know where this is going to go. I think companies, business partners have to be reasonable. Many of them, they are. You can talk, hey, look, think about the long term. Right now it's hard, but the economy is still kind of going. But just wait, you know, maybe one day we're going to have a recession again, and then it's going to be even harder. So be reasonable, think long term. We have and we can increase prices, but within reason, once again, you know. But it is a problem, I realize it. And I realize also that the cruise is not really something cheap. Some people, of course, they just have money, you know, they can just buy this or whatever, like they just go to a restaurant every day, they probably fly first class, or they can just go and buy a new car. Some other people, they have to save up. One thing that we do, and we did actually from the beginning on, for our fans, you can buy the cruise tickets over installments, you know, so you can pay over several months, you know, so that makes it easier for some people.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
tell us something about Green Tripper and the new program CO2.
All right, so this is of course a controversial question. You know, we are. I mean, and I'm very, very well aware of the problem with climate change. You know, many people probably don't want to talk about this. I totally know. Like, we are one of the contributors. We travel. Cruise ships themselves burn bunker fuel, which has an environmental impact. I'm very, very well aware of this. We do our part talking with the cruise line about what's going on with new ships, with different fuels, make it more environmental friendly, at least when the ship is in port, connecting it to shore power electricity instead of running the diesel engines. But it is a development that takes a long, long time, you know. Yeah. So at least, and some people, of course, they say, all right, paying a CO2 compensation is selling of indulgences. Right now, this is maybe immediately the best we can do at the moment, trying to at least making a contribution to this, trying to offset some of the impact that we do. Interesting also, another testimony to metalheads. Mm-hmm. When you talk to airlines or other travel organizers or so, it's about 3-4% of the people that actually pay for the CO2 compensation. Since we introduced this, about 15% of our customers, we call them survivors, right? Of our survivors, they actually pay for the CO2 compensation, which is massive. But there is another aspect too, which is cultural understanding. We have so many problems in our world. Climate change is one of them.
One of the most important.
One of the most important long term, but there is geopolitical things going on, there is wars going on. And I think for this it is of utmost importance that we meet people from other countries, from other cultures, from other ways of life, from the other end of the world. This doesn't work over a video conference. This doesn't just work by watching the internet or watching TV. You have to meet people that come from totally different backgrounds. You realize they have the same problems.
Yeah.
They have the same dreams. They have the same sorrows. But they maybe have totally different solutions for the same problems. And so cultural understanding, meeting these people is important, I think. So therefore we have to travel. And only as a humanity as a whole we can solve these big problems. Because climate change, for example, it doesn't stop at the border. Borders, for me, they only exist on maps and in people's minds, right? We have to meet these people from the other side of the border and from other continents, from the other side of the world, to work together and to come up with solutions for the big problems that we humanity have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, as you said, that's our biggest problem, and this may be an opportunity to say that for the people who listen us. Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Finally, you have the opportunity to invite all the people, all the friends who wants to go. You have to say like a logo to invite us.
All right. So, dear people who watch Headbangers Latinoamerica, I really would enjoy to welcoming you personally next year in Miami, Florida on January 29th, when 70,000 Tons of Metal, the original, the world's biggest heavy metal cruise, sets once again sail to a new country and a destination we haven't been, which is Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic. And once again, it would be my utmost pleasure to welcome you personally on board my humble vessel, 70,000 Tons of Metal. See you there.